The gun trembled in Nandi's hand as she stared at the woman holding her newborn daughter. Blood roared in her ears, drowning out everything except the single thought pounding through her brain. Not my baby, not my baby, not my baby. Her finger found the trigger just as So-hyun's finger tightened on hers, and Nandi did something she never imagined herself capable of. She pulled.
Nandi, how are you still alive? How are you pregnant?
But we're getting ahead of ourselves. This story doesn't begin with a gunshot in a warehouse. It begins 7 months earlier, with rain falling on a grave that should have been empty. And hey, kind and beautiful soul, please tell us what you're doing right now and where you're watching from. Are you watching this in your living room somewhere in New York or in your kitchen somewhere in London? Tell us, please. I love seeing how these stories connect beautiful souls all over the world. And please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any story I drop. It doesn't cost a penny, but means the whole world to me. Okay, enough blabbing. Let's get into the story. Busan's Daeyeon Cemetery looked like something out of a noir film that November evening. Rain hammered the manicured grass, turning pathways into small rivers that swallowed the light from decorative lanterns. Most visitors had fled hours ago, but Kwon Tae-Sung remained exactly where he'd been every evening for the past 7 months, standing before a polished granite headstone that read, Nandi Zulu Kwon, beloved wife. His expensive black coat hung heavy with water, hair plastered to his forehead, but he didn't move. Couldn't move. Moving meant accepting she was really gone, and acceptance felt like betrayal. Boss. His second in command, Park Jin-ho, approached with an umbrella he knew would be refused. You can't keep doing this. She's gone. Tae-sung's hand rested on the cold stone, fingers tracing the engraved letters of her name. At 38, he commanded one of South Korea's most powerful criminal organizations, the Chensa Syndicate. Men twice his age bowed when he entered rooms. Politicians returned his calls. Rivals disappeared when they challenged him. But none of that power could bring back the one person who'd made him feel like more than the sum of his crimes. I know she's gone, he said. But leaving feels like killing her twice. Jin-ho had worked for Tae-sung for 15 years and had never heard his boss's voice crack like that. Sir, the others are starting to talk. They say you're not focused, that you're weak. Let them talk. Tae-sung traced the dates carved below Nandi's name. Born in Durban, died in Busan, 32 years reduced to 2 sets of numbers. I couldn't give her a child, couldn't protect her, couldn't even die with her. What's left to be weak about? The assassination attempt 4 years ago had left Tae-sung with more than just the scar along his jaw. Spinal nerve damage, the doctors explained with clinical detachment. Permanent impotence. They use softer words, erectile dysfunction, reproductive challenges, but the message was clear. He would never father children. When he'd married Nandi 3 years ago in an arranged alliance between the Chensa Syndicate and her family's South African operation, he'd been honest about his condition. She'd been honest about hers too. Severe endometriosis. 0 chance of conception. 2 broken people whose marriage wasn't supposed to include hope for children, only strategy and alliance. Except somewhere along the way, strategy had become love, and love had become the most dangerous weakness of all. The car bombing 7 months ago had been precise and professional. Nandi had been walking to her car outside their penthouse when the explosion turned a quiet Tuesday evening into an inferno. They'd found enough remains to confirm death, but not enough to make the open casket funeral he'd wanted. He'd buried pieces of the woman he loved and visited the grave every single day since, punishing himself for surviving when she hadn't. Come on, boss, Jin-ho said quietly. Let's get you home. Tae-Sung finally turned from the grave. Home. The word tasted bitter. The penthouse wasn't home anymore. It was a museum dedicated to absence, every room screaming with the echo of her laughter, her presence, her life. But he followed Jinho to the car because staying at the cemetery all night wouldn't bring her back either. Nothing would bring her back. That's what he believed as they drove through Busan's rain-slicked streets toward the meeting he'd been avoiding all day. Business with the Yamaguchi-gumi representative couldn't be postponed any longer, not even for grief. The meeting was set at Eclipse Club, a high-end establishment in Busan's underground scene, neutral territory owned by parties who profited from maintaining peace between the various syndicates. Tae-Sung had avoided clubs since Nandi's death. The pulsing music, the crowds, the artificial happiness, all of it felt obscene when the world should have stopped turning the day she died. But business was business, and the Yamaguchi-gumi didn't care about his mourning period. Eclipse Club throbbed with bass-heavy music that made the floor vibrate. Purple and blue neon cut through manufactured fog, creating the illusion of being underwater. Beautiful people in expensive clothes pretended they weren't dancing next to some of Korea's most dangerous criminals. The meeting with Tanaka-san was brief and professional. Terms were agreed upon, hands were shaken. Tae-Sung turned to leave, already planning the return to his empty penthouse, when the crowd parted. Just for a moment. Just long enough. A woman danced on the raised platform in the center of the club. Not the provocative gyrations of hired dancers, but something else. Something free and unself-conscious, like she was alone in her living room instead of the center of attention. Long locks swayed with her movement. Dark brown skin glowed under the neon lights, and her silhouette, unmistakable even in the strobing lights, showed the curved belly of advanced pregnancy. Time stopped, sound stopped, everything stopped. Because the woman dancing with her eyes closed, one hand resting protectively on her swollen stomach, was his dead wife. Tae-Sung's first thought wasn't rational. It was, whose child is she carrying? Because Nandi was barren. He was impotent. Pregnancy was medically impossible, which meant if she was alive and pregnant, she'd been with someone else. The thought lasted exactly 2 seconds before being swallowed by a tsunami of emotion that had no name. Joy, confusion, rage, relief, terror, love. He moved through the crowd like a force of nature, shoving aside anyone in his path. Security started forward, but Jinho and the other guards intercepted them. The woman kept dancing, lost in the music, unaware her world was about to shatter. Tae-Sung climbed onto the platform. The crowd thought it was part of the show. Some cheered, some filmed on their phones. None of them understood they were witnessing the resurrection of the dead. Nandi. Her eyes snapped open, and the expression that crossed her face wasn't joy or relief or love. It was pure animal terror. She backed away, shaking her head violently. No, you can't be here. He reached for her, hand trembling. You're alive! Oh God, you're alive! Stay away from me! She stumbled backward, panic overwhelming her features. Please don't what? His voice cracked. Nandi, it's me. It's Tae-Sung. I thought you were dead. I buried you. I know who you are. Tears streamed down her face. That's why I have to run. She turned to flee, but her legs betrayed her. She stumbled, would have fallen if he hadn't caught her. She fought against him, beating at his chest with fists that had no strength behind them. Let me go! Let me go! Please don't hurt us! I'm not going to hurt you. The words came out desperate and broken. I would never hurt you. Nandi, please, I don't understand. I know what you did. She was sobbing now, gasping for air between words. I know why you wanted me dead. So Hyun told me everything, showed me the proof. What proof? What are you talking about? But before she could answer, her entire body went rigid. Her eyes went wide. And she made a sound he'd never heard before, somewhere between a gasp and a moan. Water gushed down her legs, soaking through her dress, pooling on the platform. Her water had just broken. The club erupted into chaos. Security tried to intervene. Jinho and Tae-Sung's men formed a protective barrier. Someone screamed for an ambulance, but Tae-Sung heard none of it. He swept Nandi into his arms, feeling how she went rigid with fear, even as another contraction racked her body. "The baby! Please don't hurt the baby! Whatever you do to me, please!" "I would never hurt you or any child." He carried her through the crowd, his men clearing a path. "I'm taking you to the hospital. You're in labor. That's all that matters right now." "You're going to kill us." She said it with such flat certainty, like it was already written. "That's why you're being kind first, so I won't fight." The words stabbed deeper than any blade. His car was already pulling up outside, Jinho having called ahead. Tae-Sung placed Nandi in the back seat as gently as possible and climbed in beside her. She pressed herself against the opposite door, as far from him as the confined space allowed, one hand clutching her belly, the other braced against the seat as contractions came faster. "Busan Mercy Hospital," Tae-Sung told the driver. "Private entrance. Call ahead. I want a full team ready." The drive took 12 minutes that felt like 12 hours. Nandi cried silently, tears streaming down her face as pain and terror waged war across her features. Tae-Sung wanted to comfort her, to touch her, to explain that whatever she believed was wrong, but every time he moved closer, she flinched away. "Why do you think I want to hurt you? Because I can't give you an heir? Because you're impotent and I'm pregnant and we both know that that's impossible. So-hyun said you'd think I betrayed you, that you'd kill us both rather than be humiliated." The pieces started falling into place. Min So-hyun, his childhood friend and the syndicate's chief strategist. So-hyun, who'd loved him since they were teenagers. So-hyun, who'd never approved of his marriage to Nandi. So-hyun, who knew about his medical condition because she'd discovered his records years ago. "So-hyun is lying to you. I don't know how you're pregnant. I don't know how you survived the bombing, but I know you didn't betray me, and I know I would never hurt you." "That's what she said you'd say, that you'd lie, that you'd seem caring right up until—" She cut off with a scream. They reached the hospital. Tae-Sung carried her through the private entrance into a prepared delivery room. A nurse tried to separate them. "Sir, you need to wait outside while we—" "I'm her husband." The words came out like a threat. "I'm not leaving her." The nurse looked at Nandi, who nodded weakly. "He stays. I'm not letting him out of my sight." So she was afraid of him, but more afraid of not knowing where he was. The logic of trauma. The delivery was fast and intense. First babies weren't supposed to come this quickly, but their daughter had her own timeline. Nandi screamed for the pain to stop, begged for help, gripped Ha-sung's hand hard enough to bruise even as she looked at him like he might transform into a monster at any second. "You're doing beautifully," he told her, and meant it. So strong, so brave. "Don't," she gasped. "Don't be kind. It makes it harder." "I'm not being kind. I'm being honest." Another contraction. Another scream. The doctor called for her to push. And then, impossibly, a baby's cry filled the room. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, holding up a tiny, perfect, impossible infant covered in vernix and blood and miracle. Tae-Sung stared at his daughter. His daughter. Medically impossible. A child born from two parents who couldn't conceive. She had Nandi's nose and skin tone, features too new to show much else, but she was undeniably theirs. He felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been sealed shut since the assassination attempt that took his ability to be a father. Nandi reached for the baby with shaking arms. The moment the infant was placed on her chest, something shifted in her expression. The fear didn't disappear, but it was joined by something fiercer, protective instinct that overrode everything else. Don't take her from me, Nandi whispered, looking directly at Tae-Sung. Whatever you do to me, don't take her. I'm not taking anyone anywhere. His voice came out raw. I'm trying to understand why my wife, who I buried 7 months ago, is alive, pregnant with a medically impossible child, and terrified of the man who's loved her since the day we met. Before Nandi could respond, her eyes rolled back. Exhaustion claimed her, pulling her under into merciful unconsciousness. Before we continue, tell us what you would have done if you were Nandi. What would you do if you encountered the same man who supposedly wants you dead? This story is going places you won't expect. Drop your city below, and if you're already invested, tap that like button and stay with me. Tae-Sung sat in the hospital room watching his wife and daughter sleep. Wife. Daughter. 2 words that had become past tense and impossibility, now present tense and breathing softly in the bed before him. A nurse had tried to take the baby to the nursery, but Tae-Sung had refused. They stayed together, all 3 of them, in this wobble of fragile reality that might shatter at any moment. His daughter was swaddled in pink blankets, tiny fists curled near her face. She had impossibly small fingers, delicate features, skin that shifted between Nandi's brown and something lighter, a blend of both her parents. He'd never held a baby before, hadn't let himself imagine it after the diagnosis. But when the nurse had placed her in his arms to give Nandi rest, something had clicked into place. This weight, this warmth, this tiny life, it was worth burning the world down to protect. Nandi woke slowly, confusion crossing her face before memory returned and fear flooded back in. Her hand immediately went to her stomach, found it empty, then her eyes shot to Tae-Sung holding their daughter. Give her to me. She's sleeping peacefully, but he stood and crossed to the bed, placing the baby carefully in Nandi's arms. She's healthy, strong, like her mother. Nandi held their daughter like someone might try to steal her at any moment. Maybe someone might. In their world, children were leverage, weakness, targets. Her eyes went to the door, calculating distances, exits, escape routes. You can't run, Tae-Sung said quietly. Not safely, not with a newborn. Watch me. Nandi. He pulled a chair close to the bed. Close enough to talk quietly, but not so close she'd panic. How? How are you alive? She was silent for a long moment, eyes on their daughter's face. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. The car exploded. I remember the sound first, then heat, then nothing. I woke up 2 months later in a clinic 4 hours from Busan. No memory, no identification. The doctor said it was a miracle I survived. When my memory started coming back in pieces, I remembered the explosion, remembered our marriage, remembered that you couldn't have children and neither could I. Her hand drifted to her shoulder, where the hospital gown had slipped to reveal a burn scar, twisted flesh that spoke of agony. I was recovering when I realized I was pregnant, 3 months along. Impossible, but there it was. And I knew what that would look like to you. It would look like a miracle. It would look like betrayal. She finally met his eyes. You're impotent, Tae-Sung. We both accepted that. So when I woke up pregnant with someone's child, my child, how can you know that? Because I know you. You're not a cheater. You've never been a liar. And because some things can't be explained, only accepted. Nandi's laugh was bitter. Easy to say when you're not the one who looks guilty. I don't think you look guilty. I think you look like you've been through hell and someone convinced you I was the devil waiting at the gates. She flinched. So Hyun found me. I was still in the clinic, still trying to piece together what happened. She came in looking devastated, crying, saying she'd been searching for me, that everyone thought I was dead, that you'd held a funeral. She was so kind, so helpful. She moved me to an apartment, said I needed to stay hidden until we figured out who'd tried to kill me. Tae-Sung's jaw clenched. And then she told you I was the one who wanted you dead? She showed me proof. Nandi's voice shook. Bank transfers to the bomber, messages arranging my death, time-stamped, verified, real. She said you'd married me for the alliance, but that I'd become a liability, that you were ashamed I couldn't give you an heir, and that you wanted to marry someone who could. When I turned up pregnant, you'd know I'd cheated, and you'd kill me and the baby to save face. Each word was a knife. Tae-Sung pulled out his phone, opened a file his tech team had already started compiling. Look at this. Really look. He showed her transaction records, digital forensics, proof that the transfers had been routed through shell companies So-Hyun controlled, that the messages were fabricated using old texts with altered timestamps. One thing was clear. So-Hyun had visited Nandi 14 times during her recovery, systematically isolating her, poisoning her against the one person who could protect her. Nandi stared at the evidence, hands shaking. No, she saved me. She helped me. She tried to kill you, and when you survived, she manipulated you into thinking I was the threat so you'd never come home. Why? The word came out broken. Why would she do that? Because she's been in love with me since we were teenagers, because she thinks you made me weak, because she wanted to destroy us both and make it look like I'd done it to myself. Nandi's face crumbled. I should have come to you, should have trusted. She played on your trauma and your fear. That's not your fault. I spent 7 months hating you, running from you, believing you wanted us dead. And I spent 7 months at your grave wishing I'd died with you. Tae-Sung leaned forward. We've both been living in hell. The question is whether we can find our way out together. The baby stirred between them, making small noises. Nandi automatically adjusted her hold, a reflex already ingrained. I don't know if I can trust you again, trust anyone again. Then don't. Not yet, but stay here where you're safe. Let me prove that everything So-Hyun told you was a lie. And if I say no, then I'll have guards follow you to keep you alive, and you'll hate me for it, and our daughter will grow up knowing her father loved her enough to be the villain in her mother's story, if that's what it took to keep them safe. Nandi stared at him for a long moment. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. She looked down at their daughter. She needs a name. You should choose it. No, we should choose it. Together. She took a shaky breath. That's what parents do, right? It was the smallest olive branch, but Tae-Sung took it like the gift it was. The first days in Tae-Sung's penthouse were a careful dance around broken glass. Nandi moved through the space like a ghost, barely eating, barely sleeping, jumping at every sound. The apartment hadn't changed. Still minimalist luxury, all blacks and grays and whites, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Busan's port. Still theirs, except she no longer felt like she belonged. Tae-Sung gave her space and kept guards posted at every entrance. To protect her, he claimed. To imprison her, she thought. But their daughter didn't care about the tension between their parents. She needed feeding every 3 hours, diaper changes, constant attention. Exhaustion became their common ground. The first crack in Nandi's armor came at 3 a.m. The baby was screaming, had been screaming for 20 minutes straight despite everything Nandi tried. She was crying too, exhausted and overwhelmed and so tired. Tae-Sung appeared in the nursery doorway. Let me try. I've got it. But her voice shook. Nandi, let me help. She was too exhausted to argue. He took their daughter, careful and slightly awkward, and walked her around the penthouse. Nandi followed at a distance, watching as he hummed something low and melodic. A Korean lullaby, the same one he'd hummed to Nandi when she couldn't sleep in their early marriage days. Their daughter's cries gradually softened, then stopped. Within 10 minutes, she was asleep against his shoulder. How did you do that? Nandi whispered. No idea. Luck, probably. He carefully placed the baby back in her crib. You should sleep. Can't. What if she wakes up? What if something happens? What if you let yourself rest for 2 hours and trust that I'll handle it if she needs something? I don't trust easily anymore. I know, but you're going to make yourself sick, and that won't help anyone. She wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. She went to the bedroom, their bedroom, still set up like she'd never left, and fell onto the bed fully clothed. Sleep took her instantly. She woke 4 hours later in a panic, convinced something terrible had happened. But when she stumbled to the nursery, she found Tae-Sung sitting in the rocking chair with their daughter, reading to her from a book about Korean folk tales. The baby was wide awake, staring at his father like he was the most interesting thing in the world. She likes your voice, Nandi said from the doorway. Tae-Sung looked up. Or she's just too young to judge my reading skills. Did you rest? More than I have in weeks. She crossed to them, looked down at their daughter. Thank you. You don't have to thank me for taking care of my own child. Do I? Most men in your position would have hired a nanny and never touched a diaper. I'm not most men, and she's not most children. She's ours. The word hung between them. Ours. A claim and a promise and a hope. Over the following days, small moments accumulated. Tae-Sung brought her food she actually wanted to eat, spicy Korean stew, South African bobiti he had specially prepared, fresh fruit she craved. He never commented when she barely touched it, just made sure something was always available. When her burn scar ached from the changing weather, he applied the medical cream without asking, hands gentle on the damaged skin she'd learned to hate. Does it hurt? He asked one evening. Sometimes, when I think too hard about how it happened, how close I came to dying. I'm sorry you were alone for that. You didn't know I was alive. Doesn't make me less sorry. His fingers traced the edge of the scar, careful not to press. I should have protected you better. How? You thought I was dead. I should have felt that you weren't. Should have known. He met her eyes. Aren't there stories about that? People who know when someone they love is still alive? Those are fairy tales. And yet we have a medically impossible baby sleeping in the next room. Maybe we're living in a fairy tale. Fairy tales have happy endings. I'm not sure we're qualified. Then we'll write our own ending, one that works for people like us. But fairy tales also have villains, and theirs was plotting. Min So-hyun stood in her office at her hidden syndicate headquarters, staring at surveillance photos of Tae-Sung carrying a baby into his penthouse. Nandi, alive. Nandi with a child. Nandi back in his life, undoing all the careful work So-hyun had done. She'd loved Tae-Sung since they were 15 years old, back when they were just children of crime families learning how to inherit empires. She'd been there when he took over the syndicate at 25, there when the assassination attempt nearly killed him, there when the doctors delivered the diagnosis that shattered his identity as a man. She understood him in ways no one else could, understood his shame, his rage, his need to prove he was still whole, despite the damage. And then he'd married Nandi. Beautiful, kind, soft Nandi, who made him smile, who made him weak, who made him human in a world that devoured humans. So-hyun had watched him fall in love with his arranged bride and felt something dark take root in her chest. He was supposed to choose her, was supposed to realize that she was the only one strong enough to stand beside him, that Nandi was a pretty decoration, nothing more. The car bombing had been carefully arranged, an untraceable explosive, a timing device, a professional job. Nandi was supposed to die. Instead, she'd survived, and So-hyun had improvised, found her, isolated her, convinced her that Tae-Sung was the threat. It should have worked. Nandi should have disappeared, left Tae-Sung broken, and available and ready to finally see what was in front of him. Instead, they were together again, playing house, acting like a family. So-hyun picked up her phone. She still had resources, people who owed her favors, and if she couldn't have Tae-Sung, she'd make sure Nandi lost him too. The attack came on a Tuesday night. Tae-Sung had just finished a business call when the alarms shrieked through the penthouse. Armed intruders, first floor, moving fast. Jin-Ho's voice came through his earpiece. "Boss, we've got multiple hostiles, at least 5, moving toward your location." Tae-Sung was already moving, muscle memory from years of surviving. "Nandi, panic room, now." She appeared from the nursery, baby in her arms, fear stark on her face. They ran for the bedroom where the hidden panic room waited behind a false wall. Almost made it. Almost. A masked figure stepped into the hallway, gun raised. Tae-Sung didn't think, didn't hesitate. He shoved Nandi behind him and reached for the weapon at his back. But the intruder was faster. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Pain exploded through Tae-Sung's shoulder. He staggered but stayed upright, returning fire as his men flooded in from both ends of the hallway. The intruder went down. 2 more appeared. Jin-Ho and the guards engaged them. Gunfire and shouting and chaos. Through it all, Tae-Sung kept his body between Nandi and the threat. Even as blood soaked through his shirt, even as his arm went numb. "You're shot!" Nandi gasped behind him. "You're bleeding everywhere." "I'm fine. Get to the panic room." "You're not fine. You're... Nandi, please." The desperation in his voice cut through her fear. She ran for the panic room, clutching their daughter. Tae-Sung followed, sealing them inside just as Jin-Ho's voice confirmed all hostiles were down. In the reinforced silence of the panic room, Nandi stared at Tae-Sung's blood-soaked shoulder. "Let me see it." "It's just a graze." "It's not a graze, you're bleeding everywhere. Sit down." He sat because blood loss was making him dizzy. Nandi laid the baby carefully in the corner, miraculously still sleeping, and turned back to him. She tore open his shirt without ceremony, revealing the wound. The bullet had gone through, missing bone, but tearing through muscle. "You stepped in front of us," she said, hands shaking as she pressed gauze from the emergency kit to the wound. "Of course I did." "What did you expect me to do?" "I don't know. Not that. Men who want someone dead don't take bullets for them." "No, they don't." He met her eyes. "So, maybe believe that I never wanted you dead, that everything So-hyun told you was poison." Tears spilled down Nandi's cheeks. "I've been so stupid, so afraid of the wrong thing." "You were traumatized and manipulated. That's not stupid. I let her convince me the man I loved wanted to kill me. That's stupidity." "Loved? Past tense?" She pressed harder on his wound, making him wince. "Stop fishing for reassurance when you're bleeding. We're getting you to a hospital." The surgery took 3 hours. The bullet had done more damage than Tae-Sung admitted, tearing through muscle and nicking an artery. He'd be fine, the doctors assured Nandi, but he needed rest and physical therapy and absolutely no more gunfights for at least 6 weeks. Nandi sat in the hospital waiting room, holding their sleeping daughter, and felt the last of her defenses crumble. Tae-Sung had taken a bullet for them, had been willing to die to keep them safe. Men didn't do that for people they wanted dead. So-hyun had lied about everything. A hospital staff member approached. "Mrs. Kwon, the doctor would like to see you for just a moment. I can watch the baby." Nandi was exhausted, traumatized, not thinking clearly. She agreed, handed over her daughter to the kind-faced nurse, and stepped into the hallway. 30 seconds later, she realized the doctor hadn't actually called for her. She spun around. The nurse was gone. So was her baby. Nandi's scream brought security running, but it was too late. Security footage showed Min So-hyun walking calmly out of the hospital side entrance, holding a pink blanket, getting into a car, and driving away. When Tae-Sung woke from anesthesia and learned what happened, the look on his face was murder given form. He said, voice like ice, "Find her. Find her right now." Every resource of the Chansa Syndicate mobilized within minutes. Every contact called in every favor. Every camera in Busan was checked. Every informant was pressured. Jin-ho had never seen his boss like this. Cold and focused and absolutely terrifying. Nandi stood in the hospital room shaking. This is my fault. I gave her to that woman. I didn't check. This is So-hyun's fault. Only hers. Tae-Sung swung his legs out of the bed, ignoring the doctor's protests. We're going to get our daughter back. You just had surgery. I don't care. Our baby is with a woman who tried to kill you twice. I'm not lying in a hospital bed while she's in danger. Hit that subscribe button right now. You need to see how this ends. Imagine you were in Nandi's shoes. Do you feel the wrath and revenge burning in you? Tae-Sung's phone buzzed. A video message from an unknown number. He opened it, and So-hyun's face filled the screen. She was in what looked like an abandoned warehouse, industrial and cold. In her arms, wrapped in the pink hospital blanket, was their daughter. Hello, Tae-Sung, So-hyun said, voice pleasant like they were discussing dinner plans. I hope you're recovering well. Unfortunate business, that shooting. But useful. It got you out of the way long enough for me to correct your mistake. She looked down at the baby with something like affection. She really is beautiful. Too bad she represents everything wrong with your choices. You were supposed to be strong, untouchable. Instead, you chose weakness, chose feelings, chose her. The camera panned to show the warehouse around her, empty, isolated, perfect for whatever she planned. You have one chance, Tae-Sung. Come alone to the address I'm sending you. No guards, no backup, no tricks. We'll talk about what happens next. Maybe I'll let you see your daughter one last time. Maybe I'll make this quick for all of you. Maybe I'll finally make you see that love is just another word for liability. The video ended. A second later, the address appeared. An abandoned warehouse in Busan's industrial district. The kind of place where screams went unheard. No, Nandi said immediately. You can't go alone. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap, but she has our daughter. So we call the police. We are criminals, Nandi. The police won't help us fast enough. Our daughter could be dead by the time they move. He was already getting dressed, moving carefully around his bandaged shoulder. I'm going. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. That's my daughter. Our daughter. I'm not sitting here while you walk into an ambush. You'll be a target, a distraction. I need to focus on So-hyun, not on protecting you too. Nandi grabbed his arm. I can protect myself. I was raised in the Zulu crime family, remember? I might have gotten soft playing housewife, but I remember how to fight. And I'm not letting you walk into this alone. Tae-Sung looked at her for a long moment, saw the determination in her eyes, the steel in her spine. This wasn't the traumatized woman who'd flinched from his touch. This was the warrior he'd married, the one who'd survived an explosion and 7 months of manipulation and childbirth and still had fight left in her. Fine, he said, but you follow my lead, and if I tell you to run, you run. If you tell me to run, I'll do what's best for our daughter. That's not the same thing. I know. They took separate cars, Jin-ho and a team following at a distance despite So-hyun's demands. Tae-Sung wasn't stupid enough to walk into certain death without backup, even if he had to appear to. The warehouse loomed against Busan's night sky. Windows broken, walls tagged with graffiti. The kind of place where bad things happened and nobody asked questions. Tae-Sung entered through the main entrance, shoulder throbbing, gun tucked against his back. The interior was exactly as the video showed. Empty space, concrete floors, metal beams supporting a ceiling that leaked in places. And in the center, illuminated by a single hanging work light, stood Min So-hyun holding his daughter. You came, she said, smiling. I wasn't sure you would. You're holding my child. Where else would I be? Your child. So-hyun's smile turned bitter. You can't even have children, Tae-Sung. We both know that. This baby is proof she betrayed you, and yet you still defend her. She didn't betray me, and this is my daughter. How can you possibly know that? Because I trust my wife. So-hyun's expression twisted into something ugly. Your wife made you weak. Before Nandi, you were untouchable, feared, respected. You were the man I always knew you could be. Then she came along with her softness and her kindness and her stupid unconditional love, and suddenly you were visiting graves every day, crying like a broken child, taking bullets for people. That's not the Tae-Sung I grew up with. That's not the man I've loved for 20 years. Then maybe you never loved me at all. Maybe you loved some fantasy version of me that never existed. I love the man you were supposed to be, the man you would have been without her. So-hyun's voice rose, echoing off concrete. I saved you from her once, sent that car bomb. Should have worked. Would have worked if she hadn't been so stubborn about dying. And when she survived, I thought, fine, I'll make him think she betrayed him. Make him hate her the way I hate what she did to him. She didn't do anything to me except make me happy. Happy. So-hyun spat the word. Happiness is a weakness in our world. It's a target painted on your back. Every enemy you have knows that Nandi is your vulnerability, that this baby is your breaking point. I was trying to eliminate your weakness before it got you killed. By killing them yourself? By making you strong again. Tears streamed down So-hyun's face. I've been beside you since we were children. I know about the impotence, know how much it destroyed you. I was there when Nandi couldn't get pregnant and you blamed yourself. I understood your pain. I would have accepted you exactly as you are, all your wounds and scars and broken pieces. But you chose her instead. You chose someone who made you feel instead of someone who made you powerful. Tae-Sung took a careful step forward. So-hyun, please put down the baby. This isn't about her. She's innocent. Nothing is innocent in our world. She looked down at the infant in her arms. The baby was awake now, dark eyes staring up at the stranger holding her. She's beautiful. I'll give you that. And maybe in another life, I could have been the one to give you children. Could have been the one you looked at like she hung in the moon. But that's not this life, is it? She pulled a gun from her pocket, held it loosely in one hand while cradling the baby with the other. Choose, Tae-Sung, me or them. Come with me, leave the syndicate, start over somewhere else, and I'll let them live. Stay with her, and I'll make sure this mistake never happened. Them. Always them. Wrong answer. Her finger moved toward the trigger. The shot rang out, but it wasn't from So-hyun's gun. Nandi stood in the warehouse's side entrance, Tae-Sung's spare weapon trembling in her hands. She'd circled around while Tae-Sung kept So-hyun talking, entered through the side door that Jin-ho had quietly unlocked. The bullet caught So-hyun in the shoulder, the same shoulder Tae-Sung had been shot in. Poetic and unintentional. So-hyun screamed, jerked backward, and dropped the baby. Tae-Sung moved faster than his injury should have allowed. Lunged forward, caught his daughter inches before she hit the concrete floor, rolled, protecting her with his body, ignoring the agony in his shoulder. Jin-ho and the backup team flooded in from both entrances. So-hyun collapsed, screaming about betrayal and weakness and how Tae-Sung would regret this. Security zipped tight her hands, called an ambulance, read her rights, even though they all knew the syndicate's justice system didn't involve courts. Through it all, Tae-Sung held his crying daughter, whispering that she was safe, she was okay, Daddy had her now. Nandi crossed the warehouse on shaking legs, the gun falling from her hands. I shot her, she said, voice distant. I've never shot anyone before. I shot her. You saved our daughter, Tae-Sung stood carefully, their baby still clutched against his chest. You saved us. I couldn't let her hurt the baby. Couldn't let her... Nandi's legs gave out. Tae-Sung caught her with his good arm, pulled her close. The three of them stood together in the middle of that abandoned warehouse, bloody, traumatized, exhausted, and alive. It's over, Tae-Sung said into Nandi's hair. She can't hurt us anymore. So-hyun was arrested, processed, and held in a facility that didn't officially exist. The charges included attempted murder, kidnapping, and orchestrating the car bombing that had nearly killed Nandi. She'd spend the rest of her life in a cell screaming about how Tae-Sung had chosen wrong, how love was weakness, how she'd only been trying to save him from himself. Nobody listened. Back at Busan Mercy Hospital, their daughter was examined and declared miraculously unharmed, not even a bruise from her brief kidnapping. The doctors called it lucky. Tae-Sung and Nandi called it proof that their daughter was tougher than anyone expected. They sat together in the private hospital room, their baby sleeping between them on the bed. Nandi hadn't let go of her daughter for 6 hours. Tae-Sung's shoulder was rebandaged and filled with enough painkillers that he wasn't supposed to be making important decisions, but some things couldn't wait. "I'm sorry," Nandi said quietly, breaking the silence, "for believing So-hyun, for running, for thinking you could ever hurt us, for everything. I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner, that you went to hell alone, that I didn't protect you from someone I'd trusted for years. She was good at lying. She was. But you're better at surviving." She touched his face gently, fingers tracing the scar along his jaw. "I want to trust you again. I want to believe we can be a family. But trust doesn't rebuild overnight. Then we'll rebuild it one day at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time. What if I can't do it? What if the fear is too much? Then I'll wait. For as long as it takes. Years, if necessary." He covered her hand with his. "I didn't wait at your grave every day for 7 months because I'm good at giving up. I'm excellent at stubbornness. I can be stubborn about this too." "You're ridiculous. I'm in love. It's approximately the same thing. I did love you before everything happened, before the explosion and the fear and the lies. I need you to know that was real. I know. I felt it even when you looked at me with terror, could still feel the love underneath all that fear." Their daughter made a small noise, tiny fist waving in sleep. They both looked down at her, this impossible miracle that shouldn't exist. "We need to name her," Nandi said. "Can't keep calling her the baby forever." "What about Tembi?" Tae-Sung suggested carefully. "It means hope in Zulu." Nandi's eyes filled with tears. "You remember? After everything, you remember what you taught me about my language? I remember everything about you. Every word, every lesson, every moment. I told you I'm excellent at stubbornness. Tembi." She tested the name, watching their daughter's sleeping face. "Hope. Yes, that's perfect. She's our hope. Our proof that impossible things can happen. Our proof that love is stronger than medical diagnoses. Do you think we'll ever know how she happened? We're both infertile. The doctors were clear." Tae-Sung looked at his daughter, their daughter, and shrugged his good shoulder. "Does it matter? We have her. She's here. She's ours. Some miracles don't need explanation. Just acceptance." Nandi leaned into him, careful of his injury. "I'm terrified of trusting you again, of being vulnerable, of letting my guard down. That's okay. Fear is reasonable after what you've been through. But I'm going to try anyway, because you took a bullet for us, because you never stopped loving me even when you thought I was dead, because you're holding our impossible daughter like she's the most precious thing in the world. She is the most precious thing in the world. You both are. Even with all my damage, all my scars and trauma and trust issues, especially with all of that, you survived an explosion, 7 months of manipulation, childbirth, and a kidnapping in the same week. You're the strongest person I know." She kissed him then, soft and tentative, and tasting like tears. "I'm choosing you. Choosing us. It's terrifying, and probably stupid, and I'm still scared, but I'm choosing you. Thank you for giving me another chance, for believing I can earn your trust back. Don't make me regret it. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you don't. 3 months later, the penthouse had transformed. No longer cold, minimalist perfection, it was cluttered with the chaos of new parenthood. Baby toys scattered across expensive floors, receiving blankets draped over designer furniture, the smell of formula and baby powder mixing with Nandi's preferred incense. Photos on walls, Nandi pregnant and smiling, Thembi's first bath, the three of them together looking exhausted and happy. Nandi sat on the balcony in the late afternoon sun, nursing Thembi, and watching cargo ships navigate Busan's port. Tae-Sung joined her, draping a soft blanket over her shoulders against the November chill. You're getting good at this. The domestic thing. I'm a fast learner when properly motivated. He sat beside her, close enough to touch, but not crowding. 3 months of rebuilding trust meant he'd learned to read her signals, to know when closeness was welcome and when space was needed. I've been thinking about us, about trust, about choosing to stay. She took a breath. I do trust you. Not because I've forgotten what happened or because the fear is completely gone, but because you've proven, every day, that you're choosing us, that we matter more than the syndicate or your pride or anything else. You'll always matter more than anything else. I know. That's why I'm ready. Ready for what? She handed him a document she'd kept folded in her pocket, divorce papers sent from So-hyun's lawyer, before her arrest, part of the elaborate plan to destroy their marriage. Nandi had never signed them, never filed them, never even acknowledged them until now. I'm not signing these. I'm not leaving. I'm not running anymore. I'm choosing you, choosing us, choosing this terrifying, impossible, beautiful thing we're building. Tae-Sung stared at the unsigned papers, then at Nandi, then at their daughter, nursing peacefully. You're sure? I don't want you to feel pressured or... I'm not sure about anything. I'm still scared sometimes. I still wake up from nightmares about the explosion. I still have moments where I wonder if this is real or if I'll wake up back in that clinic with So-hyun telling me lies. She met his eyes. But love isn't about certainty. It's about choosing someone even when you're terrified, even when trust is fragile and healing is slow and the future is uncertain. It's about choosing them anyway. I'll never stop choosing you. Either of you. I know. That's what makes this possible. He took the divorce papers and tore them in half. Then in half again. Kept tearing until they were confetti, then let the wind scatter the pieces across the balcony. Gone, he said. No more talk of leaving, no more doubts about whether we're a family. We are. Legally, medically impossible as it is, spiritually, we are. Nandi shifted Thembi to her shoulder, burping her with practiced ease. Do you think people will ever stop asking how she happened? How we had a baby when we're both supposedly infertile? Probably not. People love mysteries. Does it bother you, not knowing? Tae-Sung looked at his daughter, now 3 months old and developing a personality that was equal parts stubborn and sweet. Sometimes I wonder. But then I think, does it matter? She's here. She's healthy. She's ours. Whether it was a medical miracle or divine intervention or just the universe decided we'd suffered enough, the result is the same. Thembi, our hope. Our proof that impossible things happen, that broken people can create something whole, that love is stronger than diagnosis. Thembi finished burping and made happy baby noises, her small fist grabbing Tae-Sung's finger with surprising strength. He let her hold on, marveling at the tiny hand wrapped around his finger. She has your grip, Nandi observed. Stubborn, won't let go. Good. The world needs more stubborn women who don't let go of what matters. They sat together as the sun set over Busan, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. Cargo ships moved through the port below. City lights began flickering on. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Life continued, messy and complicated and beautiful. "I love you," Nandi said softly. "I need to say it out loud. I love you, Kwon Tae-Sung. I never stopped, even when I was terrified of you, even when So-hyun had me convinced you wanted me dead. Underneath all that fear was love, and it never went away." "I love you, Nandi Zulu Kwon. I loved you when I thought you were dead. I'll love you when we're both old and gray and Tembi is bringing home her own impossible miracles. I'll love you past the end of everything." The city sprawled below them, millions of lights representing millions of lives, each with their own impossibilities and miracles and choices. Somewhere out there, So-hyun sat in a cell, still believing she'd been right, still convinced that love was weakness and that Tae-Sung had chosen wrong. She'd never understand that strength isn't about being untouchable. It's about being vulnerable with the right person and surviving anyway. Outside, Busan continued its endless rhythm of life and crime and love and loss. Inside, three people who shouldn't exist as a family, the impotent Mafia boss, his supposedly dead wife, and their medically impossible daughter, created their own small miracle just by choosing each other. Again and again and again. Some stories end with answers. This one ends with a question that doesn't need answering. How did Tembi happen? How did love survive when everything said it should die? How did broken people create something whole? The answer is simple and mysterious and beautiful. Sometimes impossible just means it hasn't happened yet. Sometimes miracles don't follow rules. Sometimes love is stronger than science, and hope is more powerful than diagnosis. And choosing trust is braver than choosing fear. And sometimes that's enough. If this story moved you, if you believe in second chances and impossible miracles and love that survives everything thrown at it, hit that like button, because you made it to the end, and that means something. It means you believe in hope too. Subscribe for more stories about love that refuses to die and families that build themselves from ashes. Drop a comment telling us, are you team forgiveness or team once trust is broken, it stays broken? Do you believe Nandi and Tae-Sung will make it? Do you think love can really overcome impossibility? I read every single comment, every single word you write. You're part of the story now. Part of this community that believes broken things can be beautiful and impossible things happen every day. See you in the next story. Thank you for watching.